Good morning, everyone. We studied today the portion of Vayigash, and I'm studying the Rebbe's talk that's published in Selections from Likutei Sichos, the second talk of the Rebbe. We are going to concentrate on the idea of a neck. What is a neck from a Kabbalah point of view? But just an introduction. Joseph, the ruler of Egypt, is a very emotional person. The only one we read about crying so many times. We read about Jacob crying when he met Rachel. We read about times of people they cry, but so many times, it's such a short frequency, only Yosef is unique. We're going to concentrate on mainly one, and then we'll introduce another time he cried. We read that when he reveals himself in this week's Torah portion, that he reveals himself to his brothers, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph that you sold me to Egypt. They were shocked and they ran away from him. And later he asked them to come close, and he assured them he's not going to take revenge and hurt them. And then it says the Torah, Vayipol al Tzavrei Binyamin Ochi Vayev, he fell on the neck of Binyamin, his brother, and wept, and Binyamin wept on his neck back. So they all hugged each other and they fell on each other's neck and they wept. This is the text in this week's Torah portion. Here is the Rebbe's introduction to the idea, why did they fell on each other's neck? But there is another unusual peculiarity is that in Yosef, when he fell on the neck of Benjamin, it appears in plural. Al tzavrei. Tzavar is one neck. Tzavrei is necks. Also, Binyamin cried on his neck. And this is in the text, in the appropriate grammar, it should have not been said tzavrei, it should say tzavar. Yosef cried, says, here is the sages, the Gemara in Zvachim tells us, Yosef cried for the two Batei Mikdash, holy temples, as alluded to by the plural form of the word tzavrei, translated as neck plural, that would be built in the tribal portion of Binyamin and later destroyed. Binyamin wept for the sanctuary of Shiloh. Shiloh is a place in the north that would be in the north. That would be built in the tribal portion of Yosef and later destroyed. So Yosef cried on two necks. One, the first temple, the second temple. They both are going to be built in Binyamin's portion. We discussed before that Judah is the one who received the portion of all of Jerusalem, except Jerusalem and all the surrounding area, except there was like a tongue, a little sticky area that stuck out to the Holy Temple, to the location of the Holy Temple, and that part belonged to Benjamin. So Benjamin's portion would have the temple, the first, the second, and they'll be destroyed. So neck refers to the temples. Benjamin cried on one neck, one time, on Yosef's neck, because Yosef, the portion of Yosef in the Holy Land, would be a place called Shiloh, and Shiloh is a place, a settlement today, you can find it. And there, the sanctuary was there, and it got destroyed by the Philistines. I believe they came and destroyed it. And therefore, he cried for that neck. So that is the Gemara, Zvachim. The Gemara, that's the Gemara's interpretation. We're going to get into the idea of necks. Yes, Harry?
Shows you that they had Ruach HaKodesh to be able to see the future.
They both had Ruach HaKodesh, no doubt. The Medrash explains why the neck is used as an analogy for the Holy Temple when interpreting the verse, your neck is like the Tower of David. The prophet tells us that the Tower of David, referring to the temple, the first temple is named after David, even though he didn't build it. He calls it, your neck is like a Tower of David. In other words, Holy Temple is called neck. And the Medrash says, just as the neck is at the high point of a person's body, so too the Beit HaMikdash is located at the high point of the world. The neck is the highest point of the human, and the Holy Temple is on the highest point of the world. Says the Rebbe, the expression at the high point of the world is not, however, to be interpreted literally, for as our sages comment on the verse, he shall dwell between his shoulders, that the Beit HaMikdash is 23 cubits lower than the spring of a thumb, just as a person's neck, though at a high point on his body, is lower than his head. On the contrary, when King David and Samuel, the prophet, were seeking to determine the location of Beit HaMikdash, they said, let us lower its side a drop. For it is written, he shall dwell between his shoulders. There is no more attractive portion of an ox than the place between his shoulders. According to this interpretation, at the high point of the world means among the higher points of the world. Did you understand what I just read? Let me just summarize it, just in case. When it says the Beit HaMikdash is at the highest point, it's not exactly the highest point of the world. It's among the highest points. Because David and Samuel the prophet, when they were looking for a location, they said, let's not put it on top of Temple Mount, but go a little bit, 23 cubits, which is about 40 feet below the highest point. And they found a place which is later became the Holy Temple. In other words, at that mountain, if you're looking for the highest, the peak, you would find a little higher than the temple. And they say, just like an ox, the beauty of the ox is its shoulders, not the belly, not the back, not the tail, not the legs, not the head, not the horns. It's the shoulders. The shoulders are a tad lower than the head. And therefore, the temple should be a tad lower than the highest point, 23 cubits. And that's why Yosef and Benjamin cried on each other's neck, representing temples, because the temple is alluded to like a neck. The neck is right between the shoulders. Is it the highest point? No, but it's among the highest points. It's above the torso, but lower than the head. And the Rebbe is going to try and understand what it refers to in the Kabbalistic point of view. Yes, Harry.
Didn't Hashem point out where he wanted the Beis Hamikdash built?
What?
Didn't Hashem point out where he wanted the Beis Hamikdash built?
So he told them which city, he told them which mountain, but not the exact spot. Later on, it was discovered that that's where Adam was created, and that's the place where Hashem really wanted it, but he wanted them to figure it out. By the way, what I'm sharing is not the Rebbe, it's a Midrash.
I thought that you knew the exact spot where the Akedah took place.
They knew exact spot based on the idea that it shouldn't be the peak, but should be like a shoulders, like the. In other words, it complements each other. Okay. Ask the Rebbe. On the surface, the above requires explanation. Why is not being the highest point considered a positive virtue and attractive? If there is no advantage in height, why do our sages teach that the Beit HaMikdash is located at the high point of the world? And if height is a virtue, as implied by our sages' statement, similarly, whatever is higher is more attractive and of greater virtue. Why then is the Beit HaMikdash lower than the stream of a ton? The Rebbe is asking, I don't understand. Tell me, being high is a virtue or not? If it's a virtue, put it at the highest point. As the universe is called the high point of the universe, meaning being high is a virtue. So pick it up all the way to the top. If it's not, why are you trying to do it high but not the highest? Don't just do it in the most appropriate place, that you don't have to climb up a mountain, and do it in a valley or somewhere in a plain field.
It's speaking only of Israel, not the world.
Israel is considered the highest point of the world. That's why when the Jews go to Egypt, it says, "Vayerdu achei Yosef, vayered Mitzrayma." We went down, and when it go back, "Vayosef gam alo yaleh." We elevate. In other words, it's spiritually. Spiritually, Israel is at the peak of the universe. The Holy Temple is at the peak of the Holy Land. But yet, when they choose a spot, They are not looking for the highest, for the peak. They're looking for among the highest, 23 cubits below. Says Rabbi, either it's a virtue, then go all the way, and if it's not a virtue, don't even look for a high point. Why the temple will speak like a neck compared to a neck and not the head? Do we understand the question, Ali? Says the Rabbi. The above question can be resolved by explaining the function of the neck, which serves as a point of transition between the head and the body. A person's collective life energy rests in the brain and is transmitted to the body through the medium of esophagus, trachea, and veins in the throat. In other words, says the Rebbe, the real control tower, the one that controls the entire body and determines life, is the head. The head is where life is all about. However, the neck is a crucial component to the head. It will deliver life. It will deliver decision-making, and it will enable the body to walk. Without the neck, the head and the body are totally separated. So the neck is a very crucial point. It stands above the body, but below the head, because the head is the control tower that will send messages. Do we understand that? Therefore, I'm skipping, says the Rebbe, there are two virtues to the neck. A, all the limbs receive their life energy from the head and in microcosm that exists within a... No, I skipped. Right. So again, all the limbs says the Rebbe, for it is the neck and throat that make it possible for the head's purpose to be carried out, enabling to A, all the limbs to receive their life energy from the head, and B, all of them to conduct themselves according to the power of thought lodged in the head. So the neck assists the head in two things: providing energy to the rest of the body that has to go through the neck, and number two, controlling the body. The body will function, go, retrieve, speak, act. All that must be done by going through the neck when the head tells the body what to do and not to do. Did we make ourselves clear?
So the neck is really the support member. Without functioning neck, it's a conduit.
It's a conduit for two. A, giving life, sustenance, and B, controlling it, making sure it functions the way the head wants. Says the Rebbe, the head is no doubt higher than the neck and the rest of the body. But the function of the human rests on the neck more than the head. Because the neck will deliver the decision of the head, how to do, what to do, and provide sustenance. In that way, the neck is very crucial more than the head. Now we can understand why the Holy Temple is termed neck. The head refers to God. God is way above the body. The body refers to the universe. The neck is a conduit that connects the head to the body. God provides sustenance to the universe. God also controls the universe, tells the universe, you do this, don't steal, don't lie, keep Shabbat. The neck is the one that will deliver the commandments, the control. So the head is far removed, but the head has nothing to do directly with the body. It is the neck that has to do with the body. Without the neck, the head cannot control the body. The head cannot give sustenance. It's only the head. It's only the neck. Do you understand that, Ali? Yeah. Now we understand in the Kabbalistic terminology what's the purpose of the temple? The neck. Because the neck is an intermediary, or as Harry calls it, a conduit between the head, which is far removed from the body, and the body, the universe. Now we can understand why King David and Samuel, when they look for a temple, they look for a high point. It's a virtue, but not the highest belongs to the head. A little bit humble, 23 cubits below. Now we call it Kemigdal David Savarecha. Your neck is like the Tower of David. Now we know what Yosef did when he cries on the neck, not on the head of Benjamin. And Benjamin cried on the neck of Yosef, not on the head of Yosef, because the head never went to exile. The head never got affected. It refers to God. What can get affected? The neck, representing the temple, it will be destroyed. The conduit between the head and the body is what is affected, and that's why they cried. So far, so good. Now the Rebbe is going a little farther. The Rebbe says, in my life, I'm going to read the paragraph, the bottom of page 596. The same is true regarding the Beit HaMikdash in microcosm that exists within every Jew. We just spoke about the Holy Temple that encompasses the entire Jewish people. We talked about Jerusalem and the Holy Temple. But it applies also to a human being. I have a temple. Says the Rebbe, he's got, when a person's soul is not uplifted and exalted to the point of separation from his own private world, but instead is involved and clothes itself within it, enabling him to refine his animal soul, body, and portion of the world, his entire existence become a sanctuary for God's light. You have a godly soul. The godly soul is never get affected. It is compared to the head. But the purpose of the godly soul resting in my body is not for itself. It's for affecting the body, for affecting the universe, for affecting my animal soul. That's where the neck comes. What's the neck? The Torah and mitzvot, the study of Torah, that energizes you and instructs you how to conduct yourself, what to do and not to do. And it's not removed. You are not separating yourself, the godly soul from the animal soul, you godly soul from the universe, you godly soul from your life and your family. You are connected. The neck is the Torah, which is the holy temple. The neck is a sanctuary that exists within you, not the godly soul, because the godly soul is like God. It never get affected, it will never change, it will never be tamed. Are we clear?
Is the part of the neck, the upper part of the neck holy? Medusa, that's half,
What?
upper part of the neck holy.
The neck as a whole is one unit. I don't know the difference between them. I know only one. Says the Rebbe, now we can address other topics in the portion. If the neck represents the temple that's going to get destroyed, why Yosef is crying on the neck of Benjamin and Benjamin is crying on the neck of Yosef? Let them cry on their own necks. After all, Yosef had a sanctuary in Shiloh. Benjamin had two temples in his section, the first and second temple. Yet Yosef is crying for the temples of Benjamin. Benjamin is crying for this temple, for the sanctuary of Yosef. Says the Rebbe, my job is I'm combining two points the Rebbe is making. What is the idea of crying? Crying is to release emotions that held back, that are stuck in your body. To release those emotions is only if you are unable to do anything about it. If you have an atrocity, a very sad moment, and there is nothing you can do about it, there is no time for crying. It's a time for action. You cry only when it's already beyond my control. I cannot do anything about it. That's when tears come to play. Says the Rebbe, by Yosef, he cannot cry on his own, because by himself, if he knows that the temple is destroyed, he should be doing something about it. He should act on it. He should do teshuvah. He should be able to beg God to avert the decree. Only about somebody else, when he realized that the temple is getting destroyed, he should cry, because there's nothing you can do other than show support. How do you show support? By crying with them, by crying for them. But on their own, that what is called for is action. Did you understand that? Because I want to move to the next point. Says the Rebbe, that explains another, all that, by the way, everything I shared, in the revealed part of the Torah, there are different answers, but this is the Kabbalistic understanding. Says the Rebbe, now we can understand another point. We read that Yosef meeting Yaakov, Jacob hears that Yosef is alive, and he's coming back. It's in this week's portion. It says the following. It's in chapter 46, verse 29. I'm reading 599. There is another point that requires explanation. And the verse, and Yosef fell on Yaakov's neck and wept on his neck excessively. The Zohar states that Yosef wept over the destruction of Beit HaMikdash. In this way, the Zohar explained why he wept on the neck excessively. The additional weeping was over the final exile. Says the Rebbe, I don't understand. On the surface, it is perplexing why Yosef alone wept over the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, while Yaakov did not. How come it says that when he meets Jacob, it says he fell on his neck and he wept, and he wept excessively? That says in the Torah, Vayev kal tzavarav od. Od means excessively, a lot extra. The Gemara says because he knew the temple will be destroyed, the second one, and the Jewish people will go to exile for over 2,000 years and will suffer pogroms and execution and deportation, a lot of atrocities. We don't read that Yaakov wept. Just a minute, before you tell me what Rashi says and what the Gemara says. If it's about the destruction of the temple, it belonged to Jacob, at least as equal as Yosef. Rashi, says the Rebbe, Rashi, quoting our sages, tells us, explains that Yaakov did not cry because he was reciting the Shema. But, says the Rebbe, according to the Zohar, however, this explanation is insufficient. If you tell me that the purpose of crying is to relieve emotions, Yaakov should have wept. 22 years refraining from doing life day-to-day affairs. If someone can put themselves in the shoes of Yaakov, where he says, I'm going to go Avel Sheola, I will go to hell, a mourner, you will never, 22 years, not a week. Anybody who experienced Shiva for 7 days can tell you it's hell on earth. Not a month, not a year, 22 years. And then he finally realized that his son never changed, never waver from his righteousness. He should have been crying to Shamayim. Yet, he does not. And Rashi said, as Harry, I'm sure, wanted to share, that he said the Shema, you don't stop from saying Shema. Says Rabbi, I need to understand, just a minute, I need to understand why Yosef is crying excessively and Yaakov is not. Based on what we study, we'll find the answer. Yes?
There's so many reasons why Yosef could have wept. One, the basic one is, I was near where you were and I never got contact with you.
First, he wasn't near.
He wasn't.
It was a different country.
Yeah, but
It took a few days.
There were many times he could just sit that for his father and say,
So that's a different discussion. The fact is that Yosef wept excessively. It says in the Torah excessively. Vayev kal tzavarav od. The Torah says he fell on his neck and cried, and he wept, and again the word wept a second time. He wept on his neck excessively. So again, it's on neck, not on the head, not on the shoulders. And B, Yaakov did not weep. By Yosef and Benjamin, they both weep. By Yosef and Jacob, it's only Joseph, not Jacob. Says the Rebbe, based on what we discovered, the Jewish people are represented by Yaakov. Yaakov is Jewish people, all inclusive. Why? We are called Bnei Israel, the children of Israel. You know about the famous story, a child comes home after first day in Hebrew school, and his father says, David, what did you learn? And David says, I learned that the children of Israel were enslaved. And what else did you learn? I learned that the children of Israel were told to bring a sacrifice. What else did you learn? I heard that the children of Israel were asked to bake matzah. What else did you learn? I learned the children of Israel were let out of Egypt. What else did you learn? I learned that miraculously the children of Israel crossed the sea. So if his father says, wow, that you're a good student, and David says to his daddy, Dad, I have a question. His father says, sure, what's the question? He says, what did the parents do all this time? I hear about children of Israel, the children. What happened to the parents, to the mommy and daddies? The Jewish people are children of Israel. Today you are Bnei Israel. Yaakov represent Jewish people. Therefore, when the temple is getting destroyed, he is the blame because he represents the Jewish people. There is no room for crying. Yosef, on the other hand, represented the Jewish people. Noeg Katzon Yosef, he's the leader of Jewish people in his time, not after his time. So when he meets Benjamin, they cry in each other's temple because it will be in their portion. But when he meets Jacob, he's weeping for the temple that will be destroyed, an exile that would go for very, very long, and their worst exile. That's why he wept excessively. Yaakov, there is no room for him to cry. It's called for action. The Gemara says the Rebbe, that anyone who cannot, like after the destruction of a temple, cannot bring a sacrifice, when he reads the Shema, it's considered like a sacrifice. That's what it means that he read the Shema. He was trying to achieve correcting this mishap, this destruction and exile, by achieving spiritually bringing of sacrifices. That is what it means that he said the Shema. And that's why Yaakov is reading the Shema. Yosef is crying because he knows the outcome, and there's not much he can do because it's not he directly, although he's part of it. Yaakov is not crying. Yaakov is saying the Shema. He says, there is no temple. The least I can do is say the Shema, bring sacrifices spiritually. Did I make myself clear? Says the Rebbe, any temple, any regenerations that the temple is not built in its time, it's considered as if it got destroyed. Therefore, it's not time for us to cry. It's time for us for action, because it's our responsibility. It's as if it's happening under my watch. So it didn't happen 2,500 years ago. It's happening today. It happened yesterday. And therefore, we need to call into action to try and change it. So tomorrow, we should not be experiencing the same thing. And that's a powerful lesson from the idea of what neck represents, why they cry in each other's neck, why the temple is considered a neck. And that explains why they actually build the temple not at the highest point, because the head, which is God, or the head in my life, the godly soul, never got destroyed, never got affected. It's the body and the neck. Job is to create the conduit between the head and the body. Have a good Shabbos, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.